All right. I will call this meeting to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Good afternoon. This is the 4 p.m. work session of the City of South Fulton City Council. This is the roll call. The Honorable Catherine F. Rao, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2, will be absent this evening. The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3. The Honorable J.C. Sebastian, District 4.
Present.
The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5.
Council 4.
The Honorable Natasha Williams Brown, District 6.
Present.
And the Honorable Linda B. Pritchett, District 7.
Here.
And the Honorable Mayor Khalid.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, please sound the next item.
The next item is City Manager Reports. The first will be the Finance Monthly Report by Karen Slayton Dixon, Finance Director.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. All right.
Mr. Strickland, apparently some folks are still having some issues. If you could come forward when you are available. Go ahead, Ms. Dixon.
Okay, all right. So, good afternoon once again. I'll be presenting our December 31st, 2022 financials this afternoon. And so, just kind of want to go over our revenue for the end of December 31, 2022, which will actually be the end of the first quarter in this budget cycle. And here I show where the city has actually collected 89% of our property tax, with the biggest collection being in other taxes at 121%. Our next one would be charges for service at 115%, for overall collections of 71% at the end of December. On our next slide, we show our general fund summary of expenditures, which you will see risk management is showing probably about 36% expenditures, and that's basically going to be due to risk management handling the GERMA, the city property liability insurance. The next one would be our Main Street Red Oak at 22%. Overall, our expenditures at 10%, which is good for the first quarter, because as long as it's under 25%, the city is doing good. On our next slide, we have our year-to-date revenues, and we see that our tax collection for our FY22 bill out, the city has collected 93.86%, and we actually get those funds from the county, who actually collects on behalf of the city and then transmit those funds to the city. The West Side TAD, the city has collected 92.35%. In the West Side TAD, East Side is 86.5%. On our next slide, we show our year-to-date loss revenue collection, and at the end of December, the city collected 5.31% over the same time in December 31, 2021. On our next slide, this shows our year-to-date T-SPLOS. And here we show a collection of 10.49% over the same time, December 31, 2022. And then this shows just a summary of our expenditures, which was at 10% that I spoke of on our previous slide number 3. And so on our next slide, we have our summary of revenues and expenditures. So this just shows you a side-by-side comparison based on the budget amount of $171,398,906, and shows collection revenues over expenditures of $11.2 million. And so this is just our confiscated asset report, which is actually funds that are confiscated by the police department. And so we show that as of December 31, They received $201,693 in confiscated funds. The bank balance shows $503,315.97. And so our supplemental information, we show that there's been no movement in our ARP fund spending since November of 2022. So we are still showing that the city has spent $1,115,000 in the ARP funds, but our grant manager and our procurement manager is actually going to be getting with staff so that we can actually start spending those funds, because we do have until December 2026 to spend them. But as we know, we don't want to keep holding that money in-house. So we're going to be working with the departments to go ahead and spend the rest of the ARP funds. The RFP, the city has issued one RFP that was over $25,000, and that was for Camden Road at Stonewall Tail. That was issued to CMC Incorporated for $3,174,180, and that contract is going to run from February the 2nd, 2023 through October the 30th of 2023, and that notice to proceed was issued on January 24th, 2023. And also I was asked to provide some updates for our FY21 audit. We do have that report that has actually been completed, but is right now it's in review by our auditing firm partners. So once those partners review the audit, then it will be issued according to the auditors. They said they should release it for the public by the end of this month. The budget book, which for FY22, has already been sent to the printers, so that should be available. We'll get it posted to the city's website. And then also by IT, I was asked to update you all as far as on a software by Amplifon, which is actually going to be used by our grant manager to track all of the city's grants that are actually open, and that will track the grants from the time of inception to the time of completion, so that way staff is not having to keep up with that by a spreadsheet. And so that will complete my report for the end of December. Any questions?
In the queue, I see Mayor Pro Tem Williams Brown.
Thank you. So the date on this report says it's through December 31st of 22. When will we be able to get the information for January and February?
January is actually, it's ready now. My staff would actually provide that, so I can send that out to you all.
And February?
In February, we will have that completed. We have to wait till the bank rec and all that get ready, so that should be ready pretty soon.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Sebastian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Director, thank you for your presentation. I do have a question about, I know we have launched the funds, or at least the programs for residents for help with mortgage and rent.
Right.
We do have some money for businesses, correct?
Yes, that is a part of the ARP. So that is pretty much handled through Mr. Artie Jones, Economic Development. So he's actually one of the staff that Procurement is working with to try to get everything rolled out.
So it's currently available for residents to apply for?
Not yet.
Business owners?
Not for the businesses yet. They're working on getting that out. So we will have to follow up with Mr. Jones and kind of see between Mr. Jones and the procurement manager where they are with that process.
Is Mr. Jones in the house? All right, we'll follow up, Mr. City Manager. Thank you.
Councilwoman Willis.
On a confiscated asset forfeiture report, it says confiscated funds $503,000. That's what's in the bank currently. And then it says state cash confiscated 201, and then the total line you have nothing. So what does I'm kind of confused on this report. what does that 201 represent? Is that the one that is sitting over at the state waiting to be released, or is it inclusive in the 503? I'm confused on that report.
Okay. Yes, the 201 is inclusive of the 503. So as far as the outflow, that meant that in December, the police department didn't use any of that money. They didn't use it for training, purchase supplies, or anything like that.
So what made $201?
That would come in from the state. So that would be any confiscated asset, any money that they've come in that says, okay, it needs to go into the confiscated asset bank account.
So the difference between the 503 and the 201, what's that? That'll give you like 400. That'll give you like $300 and something. What is that?
No, there's going to be two different things. So in the month of December, whenever any deposits came in via ACH, that's going to be the 201.
Okay.
And then when we look at it, we'll say that the total bank balance also includes that 501. So in that 501, you have that deposit of 201.
And so is there anything showing, like, as that money, like year to date, is that 503 the year to date amount, or is that just for the month ending? So the year to date amount is, where is that represented?
That is the year to date. That's actually the year to date.
So we haven't spent, this is now March, and in fiscal year as of between 10/1 and March of, as of today, which is March 14th, we haven't spent any confiscated asset funds.
I will have to look at the January and the February report, but I don't believe they have, because they don't spend that money like you would in the general fund.
Yeah, I know it has state regulations and mandates around it and what
Right.
it can and can't be spent for.
Right.
I guess my question is, I just want to see a more detailed report. I want to see, you know, when the money is spent, where it's spent, because we're nationally, not just South Fulton, it's just that South Fulton is unnecessarily being targeted in this area. But nationally, confiscated asset funds are being highlighted. Even it's a discussion in National League of Cities. And I think the more details that we can provide to the public and the more transparency we can provide, it kind of eliminates the questions. So for Mr. Toms, if you could work with Mrs. Dixon to kind of give us a more comprehensive report. 503,000, is that representative of year to date? As of fiscal year to date, how much has been spent, where it has been spent? And then year to date, over year to date of 2020, this is 2023, so year to date of over year to date of 2022. Is this a running total? Does it come, is this a total that is running, or this is as of October 1?
This is going to be a running total. So at any point in time, when we look into the bank account for the confiscated asset funds, you will see this total there.
Okay. And just to be transparent, I have emails that go back to 2018 that predate Chief Meadows, where I've been asking for this information.
Okay.
So it predates you too, Ms. Dixon. Just
Okay. All right.
All right. The other question I have is, for our purchasing cards, you know, we pull our transaction detail reports, and you know, well, for me, I can only speak for District 3. I have a spreadsheet with real-time information that I manually keep, and then I try to reconcile it to the Edmonds report. And so Edmonds is showing more than a 30-day backlog for posting of the expenditures. And so can you give me some, I know that you have a severe staff shortage, and I do recognize that, but can you give us an idea when that stuff will be updated?
Okay. Yes, my budget analyst is actually taking on that project to actually download those transactions and help facilitate getting those posted. So she is working on pulling that. So we should have that done and completed by the end of this week. We do have a financial analyst, not a financial analyst, purchasing analyst who is going to be on board on the 27th of this month, who will take over this project and handling this process. That's going to be their first assignment. Their training is to do that so that we'll make sure moving forward
Okay.
there's no delay.
And will it be helpful if my office sends you our Excel spreadsheet so that you all can reconcile on your end what you're pulling to make sure that it's reflecting Edmonds? I know you can't rely on everything that I put on that spreadsheet, but it will be helpful. Will it be helpful to you all if I send you all like a as of 10/1, everything that has been documented on that spreadsheet? Because what I usually do is bounce it off of what's in Edmonds, and if I see something on Edmonds that's not on that spreadsheet, or if I see something that's a discrepancy, I usually send an email to you and.
Okay. Only if it's going to have GL accounts, because that's what we go by. We go by the GL account. So if it has that information, then we can make a comparison.
Yes, ma'am. I do have the GL account, the GL category that I'm putting the stuff under.
All right.
Lastly, bank reconciliations. How often are we reconciling our bank reconciliations?
I do have a staff person. My financial manager actually does that process, and so she does that on a monthly basis, because so we try to keep up with that. She did have to go back and do some months, but that's her basic assignment, is making sure those bank reconciliations are done.
Okay, so as of March 14, 2023, are we caught up on all our bank
She would be probably caught up now, I would probably say, to maybe the end of January, because I've had to pull her to help cover some other staff shortages between the accounts payable and the finance purchasing piece of things. So I would say to the end of January, she's caught up.
Okay, and just for the education of the public, bank reconciliations help us determine basically where our money is, where it goes, and what's outstanding.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Reeves?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Dixon. So just one question, a couple of questions. When it comes to the CBDG funds, that's under your department for the allocation and execution of those funds?
Part of it, because the grant manager handles that aspect of making sure that the expenditures are in line, but it falls up underneath CDRA as far as the action plan. So the grant manager is working with CDRA to make sure that everything is rolling out and in a timely manner.
So for the allocation and execution, that's up to the CDRA.
Well, CDRA actually created the action plan, so they did all of, where it was going to be divided. So let's just say code enforcement has a piece of it. CDRA is the one who got with the different departments. And so then finance, with the grant manager, will ensure that they go by those guidelines according to the action plan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lane Dixon. Actually, I have a couple questions following Councilman Reeves' line. The CDBG funds, we were recently in the news for having mishandled or not handled, or have we rectified that? Have we reported everything that we need to report?
Yes. According to an email that was provided to Mayor Council on the 17th of February, the former city manager, Ms. Tammy Sattler-Jones, did provide an email from the, the program person, who mentioned that the city's CDBG funds are actually in good standing. And so at this point, the city just actually need to go in and actually start drawing down those funds. And we need to do that before November of this year. So once again, the grant manager is actually working with CDRA to start utilizing and draw down some of those funds.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Thoms, I hope that we can get that letter out. We are actually, as you know, still competing for some federal dollars. I just want to make sure everybody that is thinking about giving us more money knows that it's safe to do.
Yes.
The next question is about the confiscated assets. There was another story that said that we had not reported them as required by state law to the GBI since our city began. Have we rectified that?
Now, I am not aware of that because a lot of the reporting for the confiscated asset actually flows through the police department. So as far as what I show in finance, I don't see any discrepancies there.
All right, I think I just saw our chief. Chief Meadows, did you want to come and make a comment about that? Thank you.
Yes, Lieutenant Bullock actually uploaded all of the transactions from 2018 up until 2022. And so all of those have been updated in the system. They were reported to the federal system, however, they weren't reported at the state level.
Thank you. Again, Mr. Thoms, if we could get that out, I think that would go far to helping clear our city's good name. All right, Councilwoman Willis.
Mr. Thoms, I would like possible, there's a lot of narrative, over 200 comments on social media about how and I have sent an email and got no response on how we handle confiscated asset forfeitures and the accounting of it. You know, what happens once an asset is confiscated. And I am asking for Chief Yu to work with Chief Meadows and his PIO, because I know he have a PIO, to write up some statement regarding that particular asset forfeiture. I sent an email requesting that. We desperately need that statement because just from my questions, false information is put out there, and I don't appreciate even state legislators thinking that, you know, they have to create state legislation because we are doing something wrong based on that one story. And so I just think that we got to start cleaning up some of this stuff in the narrative that's put out there. I would love, and if my colleagues don't support it, they can speak on it, but we need something. We need the PIO to put out something regarding that asset forfeiture so that this community can know that our officers just don't go and confiscate vehicles and sell them just for the heck of it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Clerk, please sound the next item.
Yes, sir. The next item is the city manager's monthly report. It will be provided by Don Thoms, acting city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to start off by saying I'd like to thank the Mayor and Council for all the feedback over the past week. A lot of the topics that I'm hearing tonight, we've discussed, you know, one-on-one or in small groups. And, you know, one topic that I know is very important to everyone is the CDBG, the money that we received. You know, I'd like to start off by thanking Ms. Corinne Smoot. She's done a great job getting the training, going through it so that we can start drawing down the funds. One recommendation I would like to make, and we could do it sooner than later, we could either do it in a listening session where everyone could log in, and we could actually do a full presentation on CDBG by department so that Mayor and Council can have a good understanding of how the money was allocated, how we are looking to spend it in accordance with the grant guidelines, and also where we've already spent it and we're in the process of drawing the money down. We could do it that way, or we can do it at the next work session and just do a full presentation on the CDBG by department. So, you know, just over the next week, just give me your feedback and let me know how you would like to handle that, but we'll certainly do that. The other thing I'd like to mention is in reviewing for tonight's meeting and also meeting with all the departments, there's a lot of reports and valuable documents that may not have flown to you in the proper way. So one thing I'm going to do for the next meeting is get with all the department heads and get all their monthly reports, because there's a lot of monthly reports and information out there. Make sure that the council has that and then move to upload that to our city website and working with the communications department and public affairs to add more information for the public all these different reports. The other thing I'd like to do is entertain the idea of having some small committees with council members on certain items. I know financial reports is a key topic among the mayor and council. You know, there's probably better ways to report the information so that you can extract the information that you're looking for. If you want to see that more in some pie charts by department, how we're spending it, and then what are the key categories that you'd like more information on. I heard asset forfeiture. You know, one thing that we can certainly do is take a look not only at year to date, but go back to the previous year and previous 3 years, see how the money has come in and what items we've spent it on, and provide a breakout report on items like that. So if there's any other documents, I know in the past how we spent the camera funds coming in through these school zones, break that down by district, how much money each council member has, and also how we're spending that money. And I also like to say for the record, that money is being banked. That money does not disappear at the end of the year because that is in an enterprise fund. So what money your district does not spend does roll over to the next year. So I want to make sure that you all have your proper balances on that, where the money's going, and then have that posted on the website. That way the citizens by district can see where the money is being allocated and spent. So I welcome any additional feedback on those type of topics and what information you're looking for. The other thing that I've heard over the past year is how we handle see-click-fix, how the information comes in, how it's reported, and what we do with that information. I'd like to thank Namor Strickland for taking a good look at that, reorganizing that for us, and finding better ways to gather the information and report it back. I know we haven't met a lot of expectations on reporting back to the citizens, so we're also looking at beefing up our administrative staff so that we can have more people answering the phones, live attendance, answering the phones, and when some of the information comes in via see-click-fix to various departments, that the residents get a live phone call back. So we're working on those kind of items. Also, working with different systems. That way, if there is a water main break and we get that information from City of Atlanta, how we can get that information out to our citizens. So possibly looking at either collecting the phone numbers or emails or text messages, you know, if a street's out, anything like that, better ways to contact our citizens. So our IT department's doing a great job. They've really beefed up their staff, and we're hoping to be able to use technology better to benefit our citizens. Along those lines also are after-hour calls. We know that we are moving rapidly towards our rollout of solid waste, and I know we've been to several HOA meetings, town hall meetings, and other community events to talk about it. So, you know, getting the additional information to the elected officials and then out to the citizens, answering the key questions. We are very close to having the finalized routes. That way we can share them with mayor and council, look over them, and once you bless them, roll those out, put them on our website, and bring that additional information to our citizens. And, you know, one of the most important things that we hear when it comes to the solid waste, in addition to what their services are, but the individuals that rely on non-curbside service, what we often refer to as backdoor service. So we want to make sure that that information gets out to our residents in a timely manner as we go through the current list from the current providers to ensure that no one is missed. So there'll be more information rolling out shortly with that. We're also looking at a separate dedicated line just for solid waste. That way we have the line for our customers to call and report potholes and other things. But because we know that solid waste is going to be a huge new service for over 46,000 residents, that we have a dedicated line just for that. That way we can track the phone calls coming in, the time. That way if we need to adjust our call centers, we can allocate resources as needed. I know we touched base on the rental and mortgage assistance programs. There are actually two of them. There's the ARP and CDBG. We've had great response on the CDBG. In fact, we've had over 350 applications received. Right now, we've paused accepting those applications because we've had a total of $330,000 to allocate towards that. And we want to make sure that we get through the applications we have because we can service plus or minus 120 residents. So we want to work through that, and if there's any money left, we'll put that back out for the citizens. But the ARP rental and mortgage is still available. There's information on our website. If anyone would like that, we certainly can send that out so you can get it out in your newsletters and how you communicate with your residents. Because that one is a very generous assistance program where those in need that meet the qualifications can receive up to $20,000. We have a total of $1.4 million allocated to that mortgage and rental assistance, and that's for residents, not businesses. There's a whole nother component for the businesses in which we'll get that information out shortly. I know it's taken a little bit of time, but the tennis center lights are now up and ready, installed. We'll be working with our Communications and Public Affairs Department to get information out to our residents, and also working with our Parks and Rec Department of when we're going to have the evening hours, and make sure the information is also available for anyone looking for any of these great tournaments in our city. I'm also proud to say that we met with some representative for Senator Warnock and was notified of the Congressional District Spending Grant. Through that, we've added some items for both Public Works and the Fire Department, and I've received some positive information from other departments that are working on Representative Scott's and Williams grants that are due on the 20th. So we are working diligently to get more information in for these great grants from our local representatives. Our Public Works Department will be talking shortly about White Mill Road paving, but I just wanted to make the public and the council aware that we have started on that and other paving projects. Now that we are coming out of the winter months, we should see a lot more paving and pothole repairs. I have received lists of information from council members. We'll go back and be able to provide some good timelines. I will also be working with our Communications and Public Affairs Department to ensure that our citizens are properly notified. There's nothing worse than trying to pull out your driveway to get to work at 8 o'clock and find that the road is closed. So we want to make sure that the citizens are aware of our street work and what we can do to notify everyone of that. But we have a lot of those projects about to start. We have also closed the RFP for Wolf Creek for the summer concert series, and it is our intent to work diligently to get that information on the March 28th meeting so that Mayor and Council can review that and we can move forward with those concerts. The other thing that I'd like to mention is I've been in touch with different programs that we subscribe to through the Georgia Municipal Association. We take part in franchise reviews. So we will be starting, I'll be working with the Finance Department on looking at all the statewide franchise fees and companies that have services in our right-of-way to ensure that we are collecting the correct franchise fees from the different companies. So that is something we're working on, particularly with some of the power companies. There's some smaller ones in our districts that we need to check on just to make sure that we're collecting the money that is due to us. And I believe that covers the majority of the items I want to discuss tonight. Thank you.
Councilman Sebastian.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a couple of questions surrounding C-Click Fix and also a recommendation. I just want to say thank you to Public Works and Mr. Gordon Burkett and our director, Mr. Antonio.
Program, and as I looked into it, I think one great thing that we can do is, as an education piece, is as we revamp it, change it, and get more people involved to return the phone calls and kind of speed up the delays that we do have, is to maybe do some town hall meetings that actually feature See-Click Fix, where we can bring it up on the screen, kind of show how to report it. I know there's the capabilities of just where it says See-Click Fix, where they could take a picture of a pothole, send the pictures in, and then what happens on the back end. So, we can look at an education campaign. The other thing that you mentioned as far as educating residents as far as the city they live in, also working through with the different services that the city provides in an educational piece. But what I have found is, as we roll out the sanitation, for once in the city's history, everyone's going to have the same garbage cans. So, in other cities that I worked in that had some annexation at a fast rate, a lot of times as I would drive by, I would know that I was in my city by looking at the garbage cans and seeing the beautiful new cans with the logos in. The other thing that I know our Public Works is
out there, turn on the lights when day falls, and take a picture of it and put that notification out to the community, because this community has been waiting almost years, and we've lost tennis tournaments because we don't have lights at the tennis center. Now we do, and not only is that a big accomplishment, but that's a that's a good investment of taxpayers' $300,000 that was put into that effort. And it took a lot of advocacy, and I'm never going to take total credit, because I could not have done it without the residents asking me to advocate for that. And so they need to know when we have done what they asked us to do. Summer is approaching. The pool and the slide, we just need to keep the residents updated where we are with that. Programs. I was on an HOA yesterday with a community. They didn't even realize we had a football program at Walkmore Park. They didn't even realize we had a baseball program. They didn't even realize we had a basketball program. And then I was told that one of our basketball programs from out of Burdette went to the state championship. That's things that the community want to know about, because they don't think we're doing anything. And we're actually doing a lot, but it's not being, the community isn't being dollars for our right-of-ways to at least have special attention. But we also need our arterial roads. People are dumping commodes and construction items all throughout our city. And that stuff, and I asked, and I'm pushing this to the public, report it, because it has been my experience when I report it, things do get addressed within 24 to 48 hours. But when we riding down the main thoroughways and there's overflowing litter in our trash cans, I got a problem with that, because I don't want to be riding down Roosevelt Highway or Old National Highway or Washington Road and seeing our trash cans flowing with litter everywhere. And then when residents adopt a road and they complete litter projects and they put trash bags in certain areas to be picked up, do you know that we have to I've had to report that, and animals and come and tear those bags open, and then trash is right back out because the trash bags weren't picked up. And I literally saw that this weekend on Scarborough Road, where community members actually volunteered their time, picked up trash, bagged the trash up, put the trash in a certain designated area, and the trash was still sitting there as of Monday. Nobody had picked it up. And so I just want to see us be more proactive around litter. Predate the city. Some of it may predate the city, some of it may not, because the street signage didn't get faded overnight. But I I was very concerned when the residents said they reported the problem to the city 2 years ago, and it was never addressed. And lastly, I just would like to see us do better around C-Click Fix as well. Because what's happening now, I'm pushing my residents, my constituency base, to report all problems to C-Click Fix and forward the ticket number to me, whether they call it in or whether they report it through the app. But what was also embarrassing to me, when I had 2 separate communities, when they submitted me ticket numbers, this is why I tell residents to submit tickets through C-Click Fix, because it helps us track it. And that ticket had been sitting out there for over 2 years, and the C-Click Fix ticket was never addressed. Never addressed. It was a road repair and a manhole. And I'm going to yield at this point, but I just had to put all of this stuff on the record because I want residents to be educated about what I'm going through as their council person. And I don't want residents to think that I'm not hearing.
Rolling out at the end of next month, it requires us increasing some personnel. So I am hopeful that we'll see a difference there. And also some of the litter as we continue to move forward our street sweeping program. But I do hear you loud and clear on the litter. That's going to be an ongoing battle, and that's something that maybe partnering with the police department and other things, you know, someone's got to see things as it happens. You know, maybe there's a good reward program as you see it, report it, and, you know, I don't know how many people are doing it, how constant, but, you know, as some people say, once you make an example, maybe it will slow it down. But that is definitely something we will be working on. As far as the street signs, the one thing that we can move forward with is coming up with the street sign replacement list by district. That way we can show you what street signs have been replaced and give you a time frame on as we roll to different communities and subdivisions. Because I do know they have a schedule. We just haven't done a great job sharing that schedule with the council members and the citizens. The other good thing is once we provide you with that list, if there's something that we've missed, that'd be a great opportunity for you to share that with us so we can go ahead and address it. The other thing that we're looking at is sometimes not only do we have signs that are faded, but over time, if there's trees, some signs can get moldy and mildew looking and hard to see. The other thing that I see from time to time is, you know,
One, what the status is on finding a system to replace Click Fix, if there is a status. And if there isn't, can we revisit that conversation? Because I think it would be helpful to residents if tickets weren't closed when problems haven't been fixed. And I may not be wording that well.
no, I completely agree. And when you were saying that, it brings to mind the airlines that pull the plane away from the gate to say that they left on time, even though they're not in the air. So, yes, I've heard that before, and looking at the system and revamping the system, I'm hoping that there's a way, because you're right, if I look and report a problem and I go into C-Click Fix and it says closed, but I still see the problem, it makes me wonder, what does closed mean? So the status report, and if closed means the staff is working on it or has acknowledged it, it needs to be clear to the citizen that reported it. Let me gather a little bit more information and actually, as I mentioned earlier, set up a presentation of where we're at with it, what changes we've made for the positive, what changes we still need to make, and if there is a process that IT is currently rolling out to move us from C-Click Fix to something else, go ahead and add that to the presentation.
Right.
So I can see if we can set that up for the April work session or just as a standalone meeting. So I'll get back and take input from council how you'd like to see that. Because if that's going to be an hour-plus meeting, maybe it needs to be a little bit of a standalone.
Okay,
Okay?
all right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilman Sebastian?
Can you follow the queue? I won't rehash anything else to say, but those are my top three. And thank you for pointing out the need for, we do have some older subdivisions where the signs definitely need to be replaced. I have that also in Versailles subdivision. So we definitely need to look at that in some of the older communities.
All right, Councilman Sebastian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, just revisiting the thing with the garbage can and the labels. I never thought about that, but that's an excellent way, another benefit of doing this citywide program. But make sure that can says City of South Fulton, not just South Fulton, okay? Because that's an important distinction. The other thing I want to mention is that I'll continue to say this. I would love to see us track the amount of money we spend on litter pickup, and if possible, track it by district. Because litter and garbage don't automatically manifest themselves in the right of way and on public streets. People dump litter and garbage. So I'm really a big proponent of trying to get the people who are doing dumping on our streets to stop them from doing it. So whatever way, whatever system, however departments have to work together to figure this out, you know, I would love to see some sort of program that's set up between Public Works, PD, and code enforcement to sort of figure some of this thing out, because it's getting really, really bad in some places. People feel comfortable dumping mattresses and several bags of garbage in the right of way. And
For the CBDG presentation and recommendations for the CBDG funding to be brought back to the next work session in April. So I'm talking to the city attorney. Do I need to do a motion, or do I need to get consensus from my colleagues? I'm looking for legal direction.
I would do a consensus from your colleagues, because we have a work session resolution, and so that would be the process I would go.
Do I need to just ask for consensus from my colleagues for that, so that we can direct the city manager?
I would,
Okay, I have another consensus I would like to add. I would ask that the city manager send monthly reports for every division to this council, starting in the month of April.
Madam Willis?
Last time I checked, I still have the floor. Am I correct, Mayor? Do I still have the floor?
You do.
City manager, am I following proper Robert Rules of Order by asking for consensus?
If I could just step in one quick second. I wonder, just to keep our meeting moving, if this is something that we could do offline. We usually, put together the agenda offline. We had a process where people just email that in.
With more sophisticated data, that we get a monthly report to this council from all department heads. I think that's a reasonable request, and that will also alleviate us from constantly going back and forth to the city manager, department heads asking for updates.
Can I ask for a point of clarity?
I still have the floor, correct, Mayor?
I was asking for a point of
Councilman
clarity.
Willis. Councilman
Thank you.
Willis has the floor.
I just want to be clear.
Also, city manager, where are we having our council meetings next month? Because I typically would like to have a very professional council meeting. I don't want to be sitting in front of theater sets, because this is not a theater or reality show, in my opinion. Just my opinion. So is there anywhere possible we can move our regular council meetings to places where we don't have to interrupt theater sets, whether it be Welcome or Burdette. It doesn't matter. I just don't care to be sitting in front of theater sets anymore.
Yes, ma'am, I believe this facility is available. So if it is the council's wish and desire to have work sessions and council meetings here, we certainly could do that.
Okay. So I put a lot of things. Is it proper for us to get consensus?
Councilman Willis, according to our work session ordinance, it says all.
Point of order. I'm gonna ask, because our practice has been not to make motions in work sessions. So if we're changing that, I think
We're
we need
setting
to-
a very dangerous precedent. You're
Yes,
correct.
exactly.
Point of information.
Yeah,
This is why, at the beginning, I asked, should we take consensus or should we make a motion? And there is nothing in our code that prohibit us from, that I know of, that prohibit us from taking motions. The city attorney just opined when I asked him, should we have the clerk take consensus or a motion? And he said, he advised me, the city attorney, to make a motion. So I am doing as I am advised by the city attorney. Now, if I am doing something wrong, please direct me otherwise. But I don't recall anything in our code that prohibits us from doing that. And if I don't need to make a motion, then can we get the clerk to take consensus?
All
And
right,
I asked
the points of order and information have been recognized. There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
What are we supposed to be doing?
Seeing and hearing none, that
Can
motion
you give me a
fails.
second for the, No, sir. Point of order. When I tried to make the motion.
There's a motion
when
on
I
the
made
floor. Is
motion-
there a second for Councilwoman Willis's motion?
Can
Is
we-
there a second? I will take a second by a show of hands or an audible signal.
Having every department report monthly, starting in April.
Yes, sir, you're correct. I was going to provide you a report from every department and then upload that to the website.
And then prior to, you said we can either do that by listening session or by the next work session meeting, correct?
I think the listening sessions were for something else. I was automatically just going to give you all the monthly reports.
So, so that was stated. So
Yes, sir.
do we need a motion for that, or do we need this to
I-
transpire if this is
I was
already
gonna-
going to happen and it was already in your monthly report?
I was going to start that by April, so if you want them sooner, I can see what's available, but if not, you will have them at the April work session meeting.
Thank you. That's all I was asking for earlier, was the point of clarity, was that in your report. Thank you.
Discussion.
Dr. Rao, I believe you're next.
Again, I know we haven't had this precedent, so I'm sticking to that pretty much. And we just need to, I mean, he made recommendations as it relates to how he's going to be communicating going forward. I think we need to look towards the future and not talk about where we've been, so.
Councilwoman Willis.
The reason I put the motion on the floor, and the reason I am asking for the vote is because we have historically said things were going to get done. What has historically happened in work sessions where we may not typically have voted, but we have typically had the clerk take consensus in work sessions. And that's why I originally asked, before I made any of these motions, should we take consensus or should we vote? If you go back, I'm glad this is being recorded. I repeatedly asked that question. And what has historically happened in work sessions is that the clerk will go down and take the consensus of every council member. So some of us have been inaugural council members, and some of us before we became mayor were council members, and we can go back and pull every work session and you can see where that has been historically done. I am simply acting off of the advisement of our city attorney. If this council, if it's the will of this council not to vote, but to do what we historically have done in the past, which is take a consensus, and the clerk would take that consensus, I'll be happy to withdraw my motion and ask the clerk if he would go down this line and take consensus.
Okay.
And yes, I will take that into consideration that you're requesting. Thank you.
All right, is there any further discussion? All right, Mr. Clerk, please call the whatever.
At a work session, is this something where we can get with the city manager, like individually, small groups, however we want it, you know, email, carrier pigeon, however we want to do it, so that they know what they're looking for? Because I think that if we send them to look for something to potentially replace ClickFix and we haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about what we need a future system to do, we're going to kind of be shooting in the dark at trying to get to where we want to be. So is this something that we can not have a presentation for so quickly to give us time to work through what we want in a future system?
To answer
I'm
her
going to
question.
just respond first here. Are you asking, I'm sorry, is ClickFix one of the items that we're going to have in a work set? Mr. Clerk, is ClickFix one of the things we've taken consensus about?
No, it was just mentioned this evening, but no.
Okay, so that's not one of the.
But wasn't that one of the presentations that it was, okay.
Point of information. If you will allow me to give her a point of information.
Sure.
What we just took consensus on.
After the presentations, that will be better served for the time that is allocated. I know that we can do the will of whatever we want to exercise, but I do ask that we respect the constituency time because they do want to hear the presentations that's on the agenda. And I think since we're talking about having presentations from every department, these two that are key and critical, I think that we need to go ahead and get to that and save our commentary for after the presentations so we can have more dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Reeves. Mr. Clerk, please sound the next item.
Next item is item 3, as listed on your agenda, Public Works Monthly Report by Antonio Valenzuela, Director, Department of Public Works.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and residents of the City of South Fulton. Tonight, I'm here to present to you the Public Works report that we do on a monthly basis. I do apologize if for some reason you're not getting the reports. Those reports have been submitted to your attention since November of last year. To date, we have made substantial improvements to the report. We have provided a GIS link, so where you can use that for your reference and share with your constituents, where it's very friendly use, where you can pick up on the left-hand side of that link, leisure of the city, and we're going to make sure that we pick up more often litter in areas that are hotspot areas. With regards to areas where perhaps we're not doing very quickly repairs, and I have asked our procurement officer, I have discussed with the acting city manager, I have discussed with some of you that we do need some flexibility so we can act much quicker on all the response that we have. These days, a simple repair, it doesn't cost $1,000, it doesn't cost $5,000, it's over $25,000. And we're acting as quickly as possible to get 3 quotes. In some cases, we're moving ahead, getting the jobs done with proper contractors that we trust that can do the job for us. In many areas, as you can see, you stand correct, Council, when you state that there's some repairs that stay staggered for 2 years, no response. And the reason why was funding. This year, we have more funding. This year, we have more flexibility. And finally, I have sent reports as we're scheduling the projects, as we're moving with the projects, why and the reason that it took too long to make those repairs. In some instances, I've sent pictures where the bases were filled with concrete blocks. That was not done by the city. We inherited those roads. We inherited those problems, and now we're resolving. So it's not just a pothole. So sometimes it's a misunderstanding by our full depth reclamation is going very well. Contractor have already applied the soil cement mix at 50 pounds per square inch, for a square foot, I'm sorry. And then it started already to proceed the base for the roads. So we have done half of the road, worked one side, then we're moving to the left side. It costs more money, but the repairs, it will last longer. We were assured that this will take us no less than 12 years before we're going to get back to that road. So instead of taking us months, we hope that we're going to complete this project within less than 2 months. The other project that I'd like to mention to you is the much-needed Campbellton Road construction at Stonewall Hotel. The kickoff meeting was held on February 2nd, and the groundbreaking ceremony has been scheduled for March 20th. The vendor already started doing some minor work, but we were assured that we're going to complete. The project is scheduled at about $3.6 million. And finally is the Cochrane Road over Camp Creek. Is a bridge replacement that's going to cost us about $2 million, and we hope to let that project in the winter of this year. Detailed information on what this project is, it is tremendous. I don't know if I'll share with you if you will be able to follow, because the details it's a lot. It goes phase by phase, and it typically goes from the concept approval, environmental approval, preliminary plans, right-of-way plans approval, final field plan reviews, then execution of a project frame agreement with Georgia DOT, approval from Georgia DOT, then being able to advertise the project, bid that out, then come back to council for approval, go back to Georgia DOT for approval. So it is a tedious project when you let a project with federal funds. All the projects that we have that Georgia DOT is managing for us, but we're working with them. I have to mention that State Route 14, Roosevelt Highway at Washington Road, the roundabout, is still scheduled for construction letting on the fall of 2023. Swimming pool, so that the slide will be installed. I have to mention to you that we have inherited facilities and roads with tremendous issues. And I don't want to just cover up for you. I want to be able to do the job for you, being able to tell you what needs to be done. Because once I go to the roof and we inspect it and we open all the things and we find other things, I want to advise you that this is the time to handle it. I'm going to advise you, I have to do it. I have to make a decision to get it done. If I don't, I'm going to come back. I have to pay more money. I have to rebid the project again. I have to install a scaffold again to make some repairs. There is some minor issues that we found, and then I want to be able to be allowed make those decisions.
So that I'm clear, are you saying for next year's budget, you're asked for the increase for next year's budget or the mid-year budget of this year?
This year, because the project's going to be led in the winter of this year.
So can you give an anticipated date of when dirt will turn and the actual project will start this year?
So the letting, because we got to go to Georgia DOT on multiple items, we're on the winter. I will definitely say that early next year, right after the winter, that's when you'll see lots of work in the area. Because typically, we're going to be doing contract executions and so on. If we have good weather conditions and everything is executed quickly, then we'll be able to start as soon as possible. Georgia DOT should be approving everything in the winter. But then you have to advertise the ITB for 30 days, then award, then go back to Georgia DOT for their approval. So there's some time consuming before we can do any work. We have to have the final approval from Georgia DOT when they will commit to the 80%.
So, okay, well, then the next question I have then, so you're saying the potentially start date is going to be next year, 2024. So let me just say this, with the extended wait period time, and we do have some issues that's going on Highway 279, is it possible to add a pedestrian bridge at the
a combination for one project, but I'm going into the project to give you more details on where we are. But the actual ITB is ready to go. The ITB is ready to go. The project is completed. The design of the project is completed.
Okay. And you know, I'm going to a HOA meeting on Thursday, and this is what I'm putting out to the community. And my question is, I'm just trying to get clarification on here and what you presented to this council just now. And what I'm going to give to the community is that target LET, meaning that the work has gone out for bid March 2023. And I didn't quite get a clear answer. Has the bid gone out?
No, the bid hasn't been gone out. Under the comments, do you have the last report?
Yeah,
February?
and I'm looking at the report that you just presented.
Mm-hmm.
It said the same thing.
Right, and the comments on the bottom, on the comments, the target late date was adjusted from December 22 to March 23 due to right-of-way negotiations, requiring a plan change. In addition, combination on final parcel has affected the target late date due to change in the parcel into procurement, and we hope that procurement will put the document out for advertising, and we hope that it's becomes advertising before the end of the month.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on from this because I have another question. Are we on target to start construction March 2023 as reported on this report that we have submitted to the community today, last month, the month before last, and what I am about to go to the community and present are we on target for the roundabout construction to start at Button Road and Union Road, May 2023?
I think we can meet if it's advertised. We have 30 days for advertisement. Actually, it can do in 20 days, I believe. I think it's feasible.
Okay. The next project I have a question specifically about is this community is also concerned about the roundabouts on Old Fairburn and Union Road, and it says this is going to be let with Project 615, so that would be Stonewall Tail and Union Road 613, and it's council.
I believe that our city manager and directors of the city of South Fulton need to have more flexibility and authority and expanding authority. We are constantly looking at different vendors that they don't provide in a timely manner their bids. Sometimes we have to procure and have to advertise for projects, and those advertisements are not controlled by Public Works, are controlled by others. While that are controlled by others, we have different disagreements on what the scope of work is or what it should be done and so on. We believe that we are the professionals and we are the experts of what we need to do, but sometimes we're judged by others that believe they are the engineers and so on.
Okay, so Mr. Vanswella, the current spending authority is $25,000?
Yes, ma'am.
And just for my colleagues, I did research of cities of our size, and that is really low. The average spending authority for a city of this size for the city manager and by way of for department heads by way of city manager is anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000. And so what he's saying is that with his spending authority being capped at $25,000, most of the public works projects are coming in over 20. It's exactly what it says, work session. And it's the opportunity for us to talk through things and work through things and get the answers we need so that we can make data-driven and informed decisions as council. Thank you.
I'm just going to respond to you with a point of information. Mr. Clerk Adams, we have a zoning hearing scheduled for 6 o'clock.
That's correct.
Okay, I didn't create that. We send a notice out 45 days in advance of that hearing that's when the time is.
Yeah, I believe that's when CDRA does that advertisement.
Right, and so I did ask previously, because we have these super long reports, we actually haven't even gotten to the presentations yet, and it's 6 o'clock. So I will just ask again, not right now, but for council to consider, if we're going to have these super long reports followed by 4 presentations, we probably need to start our zoning hearings at 7, which we would not even be able to do until April, because the zoning hearing for March has already been advertised. Is that correct?
Mr. McClennan's saying yes.
Thank you. All right, next in the queue is Councilwoman Pritchett.
Mr. Valenzuela, I've had conversations with you regarding the increased dumping in my district and litter, and we talked.
I agree to you 100%, and I am on board. Just want to take a moment of personal privilege to recognize a great senator from District 35, my senator and mentor, Senator Donzetta James. All right. Sorry. Somebody say you're their constituent, Senator. Thank you. Mr. Valenzuela, again, thank you for your presentation. I do put this, put your report in my newsletter so that citizens can track these projects and see where they are. So kind of agree that if we have changes, then sometimes we need to explain that. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I wanted to ask you about the whole issue of procurement and your power to get projects done, sometimes in an emergency fashion and quicker. All my colleagues know, I shared the video with them that I received on Jones Road. It became impossible because of trucks and trailers and school buses.
That each road has its specific items. A good example is when we did some deep base repairs for a prior council, where we have 3 roads that needed to be repaired, and the cost, one of them was under $25,000, the other one was $60,000, the other one was $78,000. So the one under $25,000 was done. The one over $25,000, we had to do all the procurement, emergency procurement and approvals. But when it came to your side, we requested 3 quotes. We actually requested 5 quotes, and I believe we received 3 to 4 quotes. And luckily, the vendors provided to us under $25,000 under the city manager's approval authority, which is at that time the prior city manager was aware, the acting city manager was aware and was approved. So we went and authorized the work. So we asked the vendor, rent the equipment, bring the labor, do not return. Let's do it for Jones Road and Hall Road, which would be much cheaper for us than to pay separate labor, separate equipment per road. So we were able to do it at $25,000. But staff work on the weeks after, there are more potholes. The potholes are deeper. And when somebody asks why should you add more JAB, because that's what's needed for the job. I don't want to do it twice. I want to make sure that the contractor is done right and then at least survive on those gravel roads at least for 6-9 months before we come back again.
Well, as the district that probably has the majority of the dirt roads in the city, I would really like to see a planned maintenance program. Also, I would commit to working with my colleagues and with staff, Mr. City Manager, to look at our cap number, that $25,000, and figure out how we can come back and set that. My last question, and I'm sorry I have so many, is for these projects that are funded, for example, through the ARC. I noticed in the last round of the report, I think I remember all of the federal funded projects were listed together and all of the T-STARS funded projects were separate. This one, they're intermixed among each other. So I like the previous report in terms of flow. So if you want to go back and revisit that. But in terms of the ARC projects,
And for approval, sometimes 4 months before. You got to submit 4 months because they take 4 months to review certain things. So for us, while we're about to complete perhaps in March, they want to see it in January.
Okay.
So we're always against deadlines.
all right, thank you. And again, thank you guys for the work that you're doing to replace that White Mill Road. The project looks to be coming along very nicely. So again, thank you for working with the other jurisdiction around, I think, Union City and Fairburn,
Yes, sir.
right? So
Yes.
thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Dr. Rao.
Well, I wanted the public to know in general that Councilwoman Natasha Williams, Councilwoman Willis, and myself have had meetings with the city attorney to address changes to our procurement. And my understanding is that it was supposed to come in our April session, but hearing the urgency of some of the things, is it something that we consider in terms of emergency? Because we have adopted emergency procurement when we first started the city, so that these projects can move, because I know we have at least 2 meetings before we could adopt the changes.
Point of order.
The chair recognizes Councilwoman Willis.
Point of
Ms.
order
Snead.
stops everything. He just recognized me. I just said point of order. So emergency.
Have to do the work. So all I'm asking is to make sure that we get it in the queue. The department head should be looking at it anyway. If it goes through the legislative process, I want to see it show up sooner rather than later. So I'm suggesting, if we're doing a quick consensus, I'm recommending 250.
I just, before we go to this consensus, I do just want to ask a point of information, Mr. City Attorney. Would this 250 be just for Public Works, or would this raise it for every department? Because just last month, I believe that we denied a sole source contract because we did not go through 3 bids. So I just want to make sure that we're being consistent. And as soon as I hear this answer from our city attorney, I will go to you, Councilman Willis.
The spending authority that I'm referring to, and the $25,000 would be related to the city manager's authority.
Yes.
Okay. So again, at our last meeting, please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Interim City Manager, there was a contract that you all were going to execute that we refuted because we did not have bids. And so would raising this
one up here. But I will say this. Sandy Springs has 250. And without seeing the data, for example, list of projects, how many were above a particular number? Where is that? I don't think that's very difficult. That's data to look at, to say, if we had X number of dollars, these projects here, they would be executed much quicker. I don't think without having that level of research, we can sit here and pull a number from the sky, 100,000, 250,000, right? I would like to see the research, and if it was shared, I would like another chance to revisit it, because based on what has happened in the last couple of weeks, as I shared, I really wanted to revisit this in detail, so that when we're making a decision, we're making an informed decision. I don't want us to select a number and then it's not enough, take us another 4 years to revisit it, or I don't want to select a number and then it's too large, and then folks are to say, why are we spending so much money that we don't have without being notified? So I really just think that we need to take our time, look at this, look at the data, everyone, and then come back at a decision-making council meeting and make a decision. That's my recommendation.
To go ahead and raise the city manager's spending limit to $100,000 so that we can serve our residents and move these projects. So the consensus, if we can take, can you ask him to bring the resolution and we just vote it up or down?
Yep.
Can we, Mr. Toms?
Why don't I just do it and work with the city attorney?
Right.
Right.
That part.
Thank you.
I'll just knock it out.
No, I was asking you to, well, I was asking you on behalf of the Public Works Director, because he can bring the resolution
Yeah.
administratively as well, or you can administratively.
Yeah, I'll work through the city attorney and we'll get that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're done. Please sound the next item, Mr. Clerk.
Convene.
Right, I
this
was actually going to ask for that next motion now, but I did want to check with council members to see if they wanted a 5-minute bio break or if we were just going to go right into the session. I see some nodding, so I'm going to get a visual consensus of that. So I'm going to entertain a motion now.
Second, and we vote once
I
again in the work
gotta ask
session.
for the motion.
I motioned for a 10-minute break. Thank you.
We're not there yet.
We're not?
Before we take a break, point of order.
Okay, so now I'm going to entertain a motion to go into recess. Is that what you asked for, Mr. Clerk?
Yes,
Thank you.
recess the work session.
All right.